everyone. Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. I am excited to be here with you today. And on today's show, we have a firecracker with us. We have Bernardo Mendez from Your Great Life TV, where he is passionately talking about living your life more fully. So welcome, Bernardo.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much for your invite. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to have you on the show. You know, I don't always, but I mean, Successful Women Talk. But some people are like, why do you have guys on your show? It's because, we're talking about being successful and we're talking to successful women. So a little bit of both. But again, thanks for coming on the show.
Sure, thank you. And yeah, Successful Women Talk. I work with women. 99% of the people that I work with are women. So yeah.
See, it works then. Well, let me ask you this. So I know a little bit about you, but let's share a little bit more with the audience. So why don't you tell us more about yourself, your background, and how that got you to where you are today?
Sure. My name is Bernardo. Bern is easier to pronounce. Born and raised in Mexico City. I'm someone who's always been really interested in finding out why things work the way they do, or why people do the things they do. So from a very early age, I was really interested in personal development, to the point where I was like kind of weird as a child, like instead of reading like usual kids books, I was reading like personal development stuff, and I was like, I don't know, 8 years old.
That is odd.
And when I was 17, I came into contact with some really powerful technologies. I met a man called Tony Robbins, and I followed him around all over the world for a few years. On and off. And then I came to the U.S. to study. So I came to the U.S. and I loved it so much. I've been here before, but I came to Austin. I really loved being here, and it felt like home to me. It felt like a place where you have the ability to start a business from scratch, which is a lot of people do. It's a very entrepreneurial city, very green city. And at the same time, people are warm and they're like so friendly and so open. And there's just like, it's such a contrast from one of the biggest cities in the world now, which is Mexico City. It's like over 20 million people. I guess what brought me to where I am today, I'm going to fast forward a few years,
Sure.
is having a real deep longing to serve in my own unique way, to share all the skills and wisdom that I've gathered for many cool people throughout my life, and not doing it, because for a while I stopped doing it, and it felt painful inside. So you know how, you just get comfortable, right? You start living, you start making a living, you get married, you have kids, you get a big house, a big car, and then you start making money, and then you forget to do what really is inside of you, what you're meant. The only reason why you're here is to do something special. Many things sometimes, but I wasn't doing that. The wake-up call came to me when my father came ill with cancer. He battled that for 4 years, and towards the end, like last 1 month before he died, with a really deep conversation where I actually told him what I wanted to do, which is share my heart fully every single day with everyone I met, I could meet, and just dedicate my life to what I love most. And that commitment that I gave him was strong enough to keep me going right now. It's what I love most, but it's also, I just know that I can't go back to a place where I'm just playing it safe, So that's kind of what got me where I am right now.
Is your wife as energetic and positive as you?
She's super energetic. Yeah, she's really she's a very powerful and beautiful woman. So yeah.
And what about your kids? Same way?
Yeah, two super passionate kids. They know what they want. They're not afraid to tell you all the time. So, but yeah, that's one of the biggest joys in my life is my wife and my kids. Basically, just like there's no words to describe the feeling of having that kind of family.
I love that. Well, let me ask you this. So I know you recently came out with a course talking about meaningful influence, which I've gone through as well. But let's talk about what is influence and why is it so important? Because I know you said you giving back, and I feel the same way. A lot of people say, why do you do this show? And if I can influence and impact one person, I've done a great thing. And I think you feel the same way. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So first of all, influence has a different meaning for each. For me, influence means the ability to have an impact, a measurable impact in someone's life, and it doesn't have to be through something you say. It can just be through what you do and how you do things. So because at the end, whatever it is that you, I mean, if you're in sales, you need to influence. If you're not in sales, you're in sales basically, because
Exactly.
you have a kid, or you have, maybe you work somewhere and you need to influence your co-workers to create a better working environment. Or if you're leading a group, you need to influence people in order to get people to do more for themselves and for others that they would willingly do just without you there. So to me, influence is the key to just get anything that you want to create in life. You only get through influence. And I'm not talking influence in, because I think a lot of people misunderstand and influence as manipulation. And I guess you could treat it that way, but influence, the way I'm talking about, is how you can shine so fully and be so centered in your radiance and in your own truth, that you awaken that in other people, and people want to do the same for themselves, without you saying anything. So that to me is influence. So the course was something I created because this is the course I wish I had when I started doing stuff online. That nobody teaches you all this stuff. You do trial and error, and you try different approaches until something feels right for you. So this is something I created in order to help people to get their own voice, kind of like craft their own voice, and get in touch with it and share from that place. Because there's so many people selling stuff in an what I think is an inauthentic way, like trying to be non-vulnerable and just try to become a super authority and try to say you're the best at something, and we all know that's impossible.
Right.
But a lot of people, most people think I have to show no flaws and I have to be super polished in order to do this, and they fail to see that the biggest thing that will impact someone else is how you're carrying your message. And how you're carrying your message comes from deeply getting in touch to why you do things. And a lot of people do.
And being honest about that.
Being honest about that, yeah. Being honest about where you are in your life, and also getting really in touch with your why. Because you can have the most inarticulate person, the most unpolished person, somebody who, doesn't have a great sense, great skills in terms of communications, but if they are incredibly passionate because they know something, they believe something in their heart, they're going to find a way to become influential and get that across. But if you have someone that's super polished, and you've all seen, I'm sure that you've seen people like that, super polished, they know their A through C's, they've done their MBAs and everything, but you still don't feel that air of authenticity. There's like something missing.
Yep.
That little bit of difference makes the biggest difference. So that's basically what meaningful influence is: how to close the gap and shine your light in a way that you attract people that want to work with you without you having to chase them all the time, and also where you can create an impact for whatever it is that you want to do in life in an easier way without having to struggle so much.
So, it's hard because sometimes in life, and I think women are really, excuse me, a little bit more difficult for us to do this, but we don't like to toot our own horns, or it's sometimes, especially in business, we think we have to be so formal. And, I'll give you a good example with my offline business. It was a very successful business, but I was sometimes not as fun there as I was at home, because at business, it was always business, business, business. And finally, I relaxed about that, and I'm so different today. Mm-hmm. And I look back and go, gosh, I wish I would have been different then, because what could we have accomplished had I been a little bit more true to who I was? And you can still be productive and be fun at the same time, true to who you are. And I am kind of I love humor. I'm kind of a funny person. I care. And sometimes we don't show that enough in business.
Yeah, I think there's this there's this understanding, there's like this secret code that we have to behave a certain way in business. And I think we've all seen that the people who actually create the biggest impact and the most value are the people who are able to bend the rules to actually create something that play their own music, so to speak, right? So yeah, what I would say is that I think that there's a lot of people, like in the situation you found yourself in, where they feel like they're someone they're not when they're in business, and they feel that there's somebody else with their friends. And I'm not saying that you should be, you should just, just swear I'm not saying that you should do exactly the same as you do with your friends, but I'm saying that if you are more authentic, if you open yourself more, and the thing is, it requires risk. Because when you open yourself more, then you're vulnerable to someone not liking you instead of not liking the fake you, which you don't even care about, right?
Yeah.
But when you can open yourself enough to be vulnerable, and instead of focusing on were people like me or not, focusing on how can I serve more deeply, if that's your focus, then the fear kind of vanishes because you're not expecting something in return. You're actually just more there to give than to receive. So
That's a great point, and it is tough. I think usually it is fear. I mean, there are a lot of things in my life that I've not brought forward as quickly as I should because of fear of what other people would think or say. And once you let go of that, it's such a relief.
it is, and the only, I think the only way, because I think fear will always be there in some way. I think people sometimes tell to, I'm going to show you a way to eliminate your fears. I think it's BS. I mean, I think that there's you can definitely move through fear, but fear is always going to be there in some way. So if you can become friends with fear, if you can just like dance with fear instead of trying to push it away, then and practically you can do that when you do the stuff you know you need to do. I mean, when you're faced with a situation and instead of taking the easy route, you take the route that's going to make you grow most. Little things like that, you put yourself over the edge every single day a little bit more, and you come to a place where that's where you live. I mean, you've expanded yourself in some way that what you considered hard before is now basically just an everyday thing for you.
Yeah, but it becomes a little less painful every day, right?
It becomes less painful and it becomes more fun to see how far you can actually go now. If you've done these things now, if you've actually shown yourself more vulnerably and you're starting to see some results, because basically it's a little bit of momentum. I think there's tremendous power in momentum. When you take action, let's say you open yourself to be more of who you really are with everyone, including your business partners, including the people that you serve and your providers, your vendors, anyone, and you see the results, then that encourages you to do it more often. Because when you can either you can meet a client or you can meet a human being. So most people meet clients, and if you meet a human being and you really get interested and you become and you both influence each other that way, I think it's a much more. I mean, at least it's a much more fun way to live. And
I agree. Now, and we're not saying you're trying to be something that you're not. You're trying to figure out who you really are inside and be comfortable with that, and then being able to influence people positively because you're being more authentic. So it's not like you said, you're not building an extra character over here on the side. It's really figuring out who you are and that why that you talked about earlier.
yeah, once you figure out your why, and once you, I mean, anything you want, any change that I've seen anyone make is not from so much as, I mean, you develop some skills along the way, but it's the biggest change comes not from becoming somebody else or becoming better, but by reclaiming back who you really are. Because we're born perfect. We're incredible human beings, and then we start putting all these walls, and we start like fearing things in life, and then when we do that, we start developing all those different personalities, right? And we're this person with our friends, we're this person at work, we're this person with our spouse, and when you can combine more of that, when you can live in a space where you're more the same person in all those places, then it's true power, because it takes so much energy from you. If you have X amount of energy units in the day, let's say 100 energy units, and you're suppressing some of yourself in all these areas of your life, you're maybe just to live, you're already minus 30, right? So you only have 70 to deal with. Instead of if you just open up and just share who you are. I think that's what attracts people. I think that when you see someone and you feel like there's charisma in there, I mean, there's part of you that recognizes part of you in them. That's one thing. But the other thing is that you recognize someone who's just being themselves. I mean, who's just being themselves. If you're yourself, then that attracts people. And I think that's the biggest misconception that people have, that if you act a certain way, people will actually like you, when in reality, people will like you more when you're just honest, because people recognize honesty.
Well, we have like that little radar in us that goes, something's not right here. And then you can't build trust that way. Recently I interviewed someone, and they were much different when I interviewed them than I found them to be online. Not in a good way. So online, they're this really great, warm, personable, and when I got them on the interview, it was like, boom, 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 not even paying attention. Okay, let's shoot. I was like, really? I'm shocked. It was so strange to me. So then you're feeling like, oh gosh, now I'm confused.
Yeah, I mean, that's happened to me many times. I mean, as you know, I have a show, so I've interviewed a lot of people, and I mean, it's not something that happens all the time, but it has happened for sure. And It's a shame, I think, but that's what happens when you build a personality based on who you think you have to be for people to like you, and then it's not really resonating with who you are. So you can definitely be financially successful doing that, but you're not gonna be fulfilled. So that's the thing. I mean, what I'm looking when I'm talking about meaningful influence, when I'm talking about it, pretty much anything that I talk about in my show is what can you do that leads you not just to success, because success is great, but success with fulfillment. That's like the true reason to be alive, right?
Yeah. You know, and we hear this all the time, but money will not buy you happiness. It makes life sometimes a little bit easier, but it's not going to be the thing that fulfills you.
It's not, and I think I would say it's going to magnify who you are. If you're an a-hole without money, you're going to be a bigger a-hole with money, right? If you're someone who has, I think people will always go back to the place where they live. So, I mean, and you've seen the studies, right? I mean, people get somebody dies in their family, or they go through an accident and they can't walk again. They're going to experience pain, but 6 months down the road, they're going to be the same person that they used to be. And whether that's a happy person or a miserable person. So
I agree. You know, it's like excuse me. It's like when someone wins the lottery. So someone wins multi-millions in the lottery, and everybody's like, "Oh, their life's going to be changed." If you've watched the show or read the stories, a majority of them are broke and poor within 5 years and back in the exact same position that they were in, because you have to change something from the inside.
that's absolutely right. You have to change from the inside, and yeah, I mean, money is I think it's one of the things where a lot of people. I mean, when you start a business, you ask someone, why are you starting this?" I mean, I think a lot of people. I think I mean, I actually got this from somebody really, really cool who has I mean, I think he's a billionaire by now. And he was talking about how, I mean, you never start a business thinking, I want to do this because I want to make a lot of money. I mean, some people do, but when you want to start something, it's because there's something you want to do that nobody else does, or you want to shine your own light in your own way, but you sometimes that get lost. And when that gets lost, then you start focusing just on making money. When you start focusing on making money, even if you do make money, it's not as fun because you're not focusing on serving, or you're not focusing on growing, or you're not focusing on contributing. So that's
and sometimes you sell your soul to the devil, and that's not a good position to be in. Hey, let me ask you this. Let's say that someone is not sure how to be influential like that. What are some tips and tricks that somebody could do to help them be more meaningful in their influence?
I mean, super easy things that anyone can do. I mean, if you want to do this today, you'll see a big difference. Like the first thing I'll say is start with something that you're passionate about, because it's a lot easier to become really good and develop your skills with something you like than if you want to start off by something you have to become influential in, but you're not really excited about. So basically, you start from your strength and then you translate that to your other areas of your life. So if you're something, I would ask you, let's say, if I were talking to you, to think about one or two things in your life that really, I mean, like that really drive you. I mean, why? If there's something you love doing, I mean, why do you love doing that? And beyond that, if it's just something that's because it feels great, how can you turn that and make that in the service of others? Because I think that the biggest thing of influence, you can influence yourself and that's cool, but the biggest influence that you can have through your work is through helping other people in some way. So if you can find a way to that thing that you like, make it in such a way that you can serve others, that is incredible power right there. Because one, you have your why. So it's like when like yesterday, I was working on a project and for the last 3 nights, I've been working like past 2 in the morning. And for a lot of people, like, oh, I mean, because we're going to talk about life balance at some point. And to me, sometimes in life, there's a lot of balance. Sometimes there's not, but that's just how it is. But when you're excited about something, when you have a strong enough why, then it doesn't matter that it's 2 in the morning. It's like it's play time. It's not really work, right?
That's right.
So start with something you're really excited about, share it with more people, and then just notice within yourself how that feels versus just doing what you usually do. If you're not usually in someone who shares from their heart and who's having and flow when you communicate with people, then doing it with something you're excited about will help you tremendously. Another thing that can help you if you want to really get into the habit of speaking more from your truth is to find out ways to, like set yourself like a little timer. I don't know, like today, for 5 minutes today, I'm going to call someone that I know, I respect, I love, and I'm just going to be myself for these 5 minutes. I mean, all rules, there are no rules for these 5 minutes. And just see how that feels. So it's kind of like training. When you train yourself to do that enough times, then it's like if you're blind and you finally can see, even if you have blinders, you always want to go back to that. So the more you do it, the more you get yourself into this emotional place where you do it, I think it becomes wired in your brain. Because like anything else, anything you do consistently becomes a habit. Not because it's something that you mentally think about, but it becomes a habit when it's something that's wired in your nervous system. So when you feel extreme pleasure or extreme pain and you attach it to a specific situation, it becomes an anchor of some sort. So if your brain, not your intellect, but your entire nervous system can link being vulnerable and being open and sharing my own authentic voice is fun, then you'll find out your brain is going to come up with ways to do it more and more often, basically.
I love that. That's great advice. And since you mentioned it being up till 2 o'clock in the morning, let's talk about work-life balance. We live in a crazy world. We work, we're parents, we have lots of things going on, and we all have the same amount of time in our day, and we choose to spend that time differently. But let's talk, what is work-life balance to you, and how do you handle that? Because you're a busy guy as well.
Work-life balance is something that, in my mind, has different flavors. Sometimes it has the flavor of, spending a good amount of time with my family and a good amount of time just doing the things that I need to do and a good amount of time for myself. That's like ideal sometimes, but sometimes work-life balance is, if I'm excited about a project, I do whatever it takes to get that project launched. Like this meaningful influence, it took me like countless sleepless nights, but it was fun. But it's not sustainable to do it all the time that way. So it's basically, to me, it's finding out what's true for you wherever you're living, and still give yourself some space to not do things. Because when you just, like, if I go many days without giving myself some space, that even if it's just 10 minutes to meditate, to just be with myself, then the quality of my work suffers as a result. So it's kind of like the guy that's like so busy driving that I can't go to the gas station, I can't go because I'm super busy, and then just the car runs out of gas. Same type of thing. If I don't take time to just go running or to just meditate or to be with my family, then I feel like I'm suffering. But for the most part, I think like most people, I think that watch your show, I drive myself pretty hard because I do things more and more that I enjoy doing. So when you're doing things that you enjoy doing, it's so easy to just like time flies. Life balance for me is finding out what do I need to do in order to give my deepest gifts, and basically being comfortable with whatever form that takes. Not being stuck to this has to be 5 hours this and 2 hours that, but more like, for this season of my life, for this specific time period, how is this going to be represented? And then I just go with that and just let it be.
I love that. Now, do you work from home?
Yes, I have a home office, which is also kind of like, it's good and it's bad, because I notice now that versus when I had this cushy 6-figure job, that I work a lot more.
Hey, that is a terrific point, Bernardo, because a lot of people go, okay, I know what my why is, and I know what I'm passionate about. How do I turn that into a living? I can't really quit my day job. I hear a lot of people say that. How do I turn that into a living? How did you? Do you still work as an outside job as well? I
don't have an outside job. I basically do consulting of many things. I do marketing consulting and do other things as I'm growing my business. But I don't have like a formal way. Like, I know where my next paycheck's coming from. No, I'm doing it on my own. So the way you do it is you find out, first of all, why do you really want to do it? Because if it's just, I can tell you right now that it's a lot, as hard as you think it's going to be, it's harder than that. And that, right?
That's a terrific point.
As much fun as you think it is, sometimes it's not as fun. But I'll tell you that if your reason is deeply rooted in service and your mission, then there's nothing that can stop you. So the way you do that is you first find out something you can do that can serve others and that you can really enjoy doing. I mean, if you take it to the point where I have to be doing my purpose, that it's going to paralyze you. So right now, let's just say for my purpose for the next year, just think about what that is instead of thinking for your whole life if that's too big of a subject. So you think about that, and then you start doing something every single day. I mean, there's no excuse why you shouldn't do something you absolutely adore every single day for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. If you don't do it, I mean, I don't care who you, I mean, like if the president of the United States can go jogging every single day, I mean, you have time to find 5 minutes or 10 minutes to do something you enjoy. So you do it, and then you do it, and then you'll find out that maybe the next day you'll do it 20 minutes, and then maybe a month later you'll be doing it 30 minutes. And then your brain is going to start working in a different way, and you'll find out ways to start doing, I mean, you do it, you have to do both at the same time.
Okay, so work-life balance is tough. And I love that you said that if the president can figure out how to go running, that he's a busy man, right? And I have found that I try not to use the term anymore, I don't have time. I've really made myself say, I'm not making the time. I think it's really made a change in my life because I go, oh, I didn't have time to do that. Well, no, yeah. I did, but maybe I didn't prioritize correctly. How do you feel about that?
I feel that's absolutely true. I mean, you don't have time, stop. I mean, just turn off Facebook. I mean, that you'll find another 10 hours in your week.
Wow, everybody just stopped. Everybody's like, turn off Facebook. It is so true, though. When I first learned about online business, I was like, social media this. And what I have decided is that social media, for me, has just taken the place of the water cooler. It's nothing more than building relationships. And so I don't think it's going to make or break my business. But a lot of people it's funny. Turn off Facebook would be terrible for some people.
I think there's a lot of value in social media, and I definitely enjoy it. I just think that if you're someone who really seriously is thinking that they don't have enough time, I mean, and I've seen working single mothers who've started businesses. I mean, like no father, just themselves, 3 children, and they can do this. I mean, like I think that there's something to be said about when you really want something and you have a deep reason to do it, you'll find out how to do it. But if you start focusing on how am I going to do this, you're never going to do it.
I agree.
First thing I would say to anyone who's wanting to start their own business you have to value uncertainty and freedom more than comfort. You can't have both. You can't have absolute freedom and be super comfortable. It just doesn't exist. But as long as you think it does, then you're going to be in pain because you're thinking, well, I want super freedom, but I also want to have this super steady paycheck that's making my bank account full every single. I mean, you'll get there, but it's not how you start, right?
One of my early mentors told me I had just finished up getting my MBA, and that's a whole nother story whether I think that's a good decision or not. But anyways, I got an MBA, and I decided I was going to go into business with a friend of mine for business school, and I kept a job. Except for I went part-time on a job. And this business owner told me one day, she said, you have got to leap. You have to stop having a safety net. You will never be successful as you could be if you continue to just depend on your safety net. And I quit my job the next week. Now, I don't recommend that for a lot of people because I had a supplemental income in my household that made that doable.
Sure.
And we had prepared for that. So, we had spent a lot of time saving money, et cetera, to prepare because I knew I was going to do that. But I still was afraid mentally to stop that other job. Not that it was bringing a lot of income. She's like, you've got to stop. It's your safety net. You're never going to do what you need to do.
Yeah. I mean, when you're faced with having to just when you're on your own, you'll find the way. I mean,
you'll figure it out. It's funny, and another thing that I've done recently, and I want to talk to you a little bit about systems and organization because I'm a little bit of a nut about that. But
sure.
I have found that if I am really becoming a heavy calendar, I'm really calendar in myself, like even my workouts. And I know that seems a little bit silly because I'm the only person that looks at my calendar, but I have a set time now. And I know that at 6 o'clock I'm working out on these days. And I know that at 9 o'clock I have an interview with this person. And I know that if I don't, I too can get lost on Pinterest and social media and doing things that I don't need to be doing. Do you do the same thing? Or are you kind of a scheduler?
I schedule, but I do it I'll say 2 things. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Like specific important things I always do. But as far as my entire day, when I do, I find that I'm more effective. But the way I do it is not, because I think this is what I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of, which is you have all these things you have to do. So you say, okay, I have 10 things I have to do. When am I going to do them? And that's one approach. And that's why a lot of people basically get to the end of the day and they accomplish all the things they need to do and they still don't advance. What I do is slightly different. I sit down and say, okay, what are all the things I need to do? Do a brain dump. Okay, so you put every single thing you think of, either it's a project or a single item or anything on paper. And I learned this from my mentor, Tony Robbins, which basically runs 12 companies, and that's the only way he's been able to do this. So you put everything on paper. The next thing you do is you figure out what is your most important. I mean, if you're planning your week, which is I think the best way to do it is to not to do it by day, but do it by week. What are the most important outcomes that I have for the week? So you may have 100 things, but you may only have 3 outcomes. And if you think about it in terms of outcomes, then number one, a lot of the things that are superfluous or are like to-do things may not be as important. But as long as you don't consider outcomes, basically taking out the garbage and making a call that's going to make you $50,000 take the same amount of time and could actually be just misplaced, right? But when you have an outcome, then you really focus on what's going to be the most effective use of your time. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do is I come up with a plan for that outcome. And in doing so, I find out that there's a lot of things that were not on my list that I now can bring into my list because I have an outcome. And I also take it back to what I was talking about before. I take it back to why. Why do I want to do it? Because when you only have a to-do list and you don't really emotionally associate to why you're doing it, then it becomes really easy to get sidetracked, or when it starts getting hard to just say, okay, I'm gonna put it off until next month. But if you have a strong enough why, if you can associate, not mentally, emotionally to it, then you're gonna find a way to come through even when it's hard. So that's the next thing I do. And then finally, as the final part, which I think that's the important part, which is you schedule it. Because you have all these great ideas, these great plans. If you don't come up with a way, this is when I'm gonna do it, then you don't do it. But I think if I don't do this part before, where I really take the time to find out what's the most important thing I need to do, then and this used to happen to me before. I mean, would have all these outcomes, all these, not outcomes, all these to-do things, and would never feel like I'm advancing because I was doing a bunch of things it's being effective and being efficient are two different things, basically.
Amen. Yeah, I found the same thing, and I could put things on my. It's like the difference between I want a new phone or I need a new phone, right? The new iPhone comes out. Do I really need it? Well, probably not. But it's one of those same thing. Is it really something that needs to be on my list, or is it something that really doesn't need to be on my list?
Yeah, can you leverage it with someone? Can you trade off with someone? And you can come creative. But I think the biggest thing, there's definitely power in putting it on paper. If you have it in your brain, it is going to it's one of those things that if you have just, going back to my analogy of 100 energy units, it's going to take 50 energy units just from you mentally going back and forth and back, and you're never going to solve it in your head. So just put it down on paper and then come up with a plan and just go with it.
I agree. Real quickly, I think I read something the other day that even like willpower only lasts so long, and making decisions, the more decisions you have to make, the more it kind of takes away from that energy as well and becomes more difficult. So I think I read or heard something that the president doesn't even make the decision on what he's wearing that day or breakfast, because that's 2 more decisions that he has to make that will take away from decisions he has to make later. So I find things like that fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And I'd say also, there's 2 sides of it. The other side is that I think most people have very weak decision-making muscles. So when you start making more decisions, it also you become more certain about how to make decisions. Because when you doubt making simple decisions, then it's going to trickle. I mean, it has to trickle to bigger decisions in your life. So you start making more decisions and just going with it and live with the consequences. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is, I don't think the worst thing will happen is you'll die. But
Yep.
the worst thing that will happen usually is something small. So.
And my theory in life is that it's easier to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. So just do the right thing, or what you think is the right thing, and most of the time it is. And if not, you can figure out how to make it right. Hey, Bernardo, yeah. I have loved our conversation. If someone wanted to hook up with you or check out your course, Meaningful Influence, where would you want to send them?
Just my website, yourgreatlifetv.com. And I have many different, free videos, over 300 free videos.
Oh, his site. If you have not checked out his site, you need to, because it has a wealth of information. He's a bundle of happiness and joy anyways. But last question I want to ask you, Bernardo, and I will link up your site and everything in the show notes, but do you believe in the half glass full, half glass empty theory? Like
I believe
positive thinking?
I don't believe in positive thinking. I believe in seeing life the way it is. And I think that if you really look at life the way it is, the glass is always full, always.
I love that. Well, we will end with that. Bernardo, thank you for your time. Appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Successful Women Talk. Listen, a lot of people ask me, Sheila, how did you build a business from 0 customers in revenue to thousands of customers and multi-7 figures within a few short years? Here's the secret sauce. We had great products, excellent customer service, and we leveraged, this is key, we leveraged our systems and processes. If you want to learn more about this or how to reclaim your time, join me over at www.successfulwomentalk.com, and I'll show you how to get the life, business, and customers you want. Thanks so much.